Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Comic Book Cove. This is Wednesday's episode, as we're coming in Wednesday and Friday. Josh, what do we have today for Wednesday's episode?
Well, we have a sort of a new beginning for a character who we know from both comics and TV, which sort of blends those origins. We have the aftermath of a couple story arcs in a couple different series, and we have a new sort of scary story arc for the Bat Family.
Bat Family story arc, when we get to that, I'm going to say a couple of things about it. And I'm enjoying the comic that we're going to start out with this week. So as we get into Wednesday's scary and new and mystical episode, we'll be discussing the following titles. Raven #1, Harley Quinn #4, Green Arrow #7, Batman #7, and Nightwing #5. And as always, spoilers ahead. Raven #1, The White Carnival Chapter 1, The Hunt. Raven is a 6-issue miniseries, and this really fills in the gap between when we saw her last in Teen Titans and the new Teen Titans Rebirth that's coming out, that's already out. Teen Titans Rebirth #1. In the meantime, Raven is trying to find out where she fits in life and trying to find out more about herself. So she goes to her family in San Francisco, her aunt, and she tries to start blending in anew.
Yeah, that's kind of hard when you take Raven, who's a very dark, very
Yes.
sort of meditative, melancholy character, and you dump her in the world that I compared to basically the household of Ned Flanders from The Simpsons.
Okay, yes.
Well, the very, what's a very, not conservative Christian family, but
Right.
a family with crosses on the walls, and they say grace before they eat dinner, and seeing Raven dumped in that world where she makes a note that they have like too many clowns on one thing. They have too many pillows
Yes.
on one couch that, no one needs that many pillows.
Right.
It's that funny juxtaposition between, the girl who's so not just goth, but
the child of a
melancholy.
demon. Child of a demon.
Yeah.
Because she's a child of a demon, she really just is very withdrawn. But I got to ask you first, when you read Raven, do you read her as in the old Teen Titans voice from the TV show? Because I do. I just throw it right there.
I do. And that's kind of sad because I actually grew up reading Teen Titans comics. I mean, long before the animated series ever came about. And, back in the 80s, she had a very different manner of speaking, and she was more, it was much more like a Hindu sort of vibe, especially with the little dot on her forehead. She wore kind of saris and whatnot. And now, with this comic, it's very much the animated Raven that I'm sort of getting in that. Maybe a little more mature. But
She's going into high school where she enrolls, and Power Girl had given her an identity that they put in the high school. And when she goes into the high school, she is very conscious of people looking at her, hearing the different conversations going around her, and she is very out of her skin, very out of place. And what I liked about this issue of Raven was on two fronts, trying to find herself and how she can fit in with peers, not superpowered peers or Teen Titans, but everyday people, her relatives, everyday people. And she's having a very hard time.
Yeah. Kind of begs the question, how did she interact with their teammates?
Yeah.
I mean, since they're not as melancholy as she is, I mean, characters like Beast Boy and Bunker, I mean, she had to interact with them at least once or twice, but I suppose in a school, you can't just go seclude yourself in your room till the next emergency happens.
She also gets, because she can't go anywhere without drawing attention to herself, her powers must give off an aura about her because she gets scanned, what she said, by another psychic, and it's not something she's caused, but she is being scanned. And when that happens, another student she made a little friend with him, starts to go blind.
Yeah, just spontaneously goes blind. And then Raven manages to get his sight back. And she, in her dialogue, she kind of speculates that maybe whoever scanned her made Archer blind, almost as if to divert attention from her.
Right.
So Raven couldn't go run after her because it was right before that she noticed who was scanning her.
Yes, I thought at first maybe it was some type of energy mystical block that bounced off her and affected another person.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem that way. Also, while that's happening, there's kind of a homeless guy that gets abducted into a warehouse, and he seems to be affected by that psychic energy as well.
Yeah, and it's all sort of it's a white color,
Right.
too, which makes it seem like that's all connected. And towards the end, that same energy in that same warehouse abducts a girl who called a ride going home from the amusement park. So it's a question of how is all this connected?
Yes.
Because Raven mentions that guy, that homeless
Yes.
guy, in her little internal monologue. Is when she's trying to chase that girl, she says, I'm thinking about the here and now. I'm not thinking about the homeless guy
Right.
at this warehouse. I'm not thinking about Archer at the hospital who goes blind again.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the very end of that comic, we see a big spiritual raven come out of Raven's chest.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like it's all,
As that one girl was playing in the fun house saying, make it stop, and she was being powered by that energy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting. Where is that going to go?
Yeah. Kind of begs the question of, is this... I was thinking maybe, is this part of Raven's energy that she doesn't have yet? I mean, is it sort of
Right.
just kept apart from her till she's older, then it'll be
Right.
added to her? Could this be a subconscious thing that she's doing? Because she does have some fairly dark powers, and she can manifest those in a lot of different ways.
What do you think is going to happen with this miniseries? As I think for myself, it is a way of getting reacquainted with a Teen Titan that you kind of know, but you don't really know what makes her tick.
Yeah. It's nice to see her on her own for
Yes.
once, because as far as I can remember, she hadn't really had her own series itself.
I don't ever recall.
Really, I think the only Teen Titan to really accomplish that's been Cyborg,
Yes.
who finally has his own now, and of course Robin's had his own. But it's nice to see the girl who's thought of as being a Teen Titan in the spotlight.
Yes.
Too.
Well, Raven in the months ahead, we'll see as she goes on two fronts where she has the internal struggle and the external struggle trying to fit in with a new surrounding and new parents. Right now, I have to say that this first issue was a very good read, and we will keep on reading and discussing on the next issue, and that's Raven number 1. Harley Quinn number 4, 108 Million Ways to Die.
So, in the last issue, Harley herself didn't avert an alien zombie hot dog apocalypse, but she witnessed the end of a alien zombie hot dog apocalypse.
Yes.
And she starts out this issue by trying to figure out how to help the hot dog company get back to full steam.
What do you really think about this? If you can make one word, what do you think of this issue?
It's out there.
That's two words.
Yeah, I know, but that's one phrase. Could be 2 words if it's hyphenated.
It was very weird. Harley Quinn started off where she's very upset because all the hot dogs were taken out of the stand. She has an idea of, well, you've got new hot dogs that are supposedly non-contaminated with alien pieces. I will go around and I will be your walking billboard. It works pretty well. She trades 2 hot dogs into Frank's No Frank BS, where she tried to find out what the meaning of life is, which was interesting in a way. And then she gets on a ride while she's eating the hot dogs, and she proceeds to throw up because you can't be on a kiddie ride eating hot dogs. Then she gets the call about, well, there's a call center in India that is using slave labor, I believe.
Yeah.
And so she goes down to stop the call center, and she finds out that the call center is operated by people in Russia. So she goes to Russia, and it was
Yeah.
all over the place.
You're also glossing over the fact that the call center has a giant robot.
I
that
was
can
leaving
defend
that
it,
for
yeah.
you.
Oh, thank you.
Wasn't it named after the Egyptian god?
Perun is the Slavic god of thunder.
Okay.
I only know that thanks to Marvel Comics' Soviet Super Soldiers
Okay.
series, because they had their equivalent to Thor, who was Perun.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, and another allusion to the fact that this call center is owned by Russians
Yes.
when he shows up. Yeah, or it, which is a giant, because wasn't it a giant robot with hammers for hands, and it was
Yes, it
piloted
did.
by a baby? Or at least a fairly young child, and the
Right.
child comes out and he gets spanked.
Yeah. What did you say earlier when we?
I made
yeah.
that sort of noise. As soon as Harley Quinn #4 came up, it was just, it's weird, because at the end of this issue, when she goes to Russia and she gets in this fairly intense shootout, getting
Yes.
into this, mob style bar to get to this
Yes.
mobster, it felt like Harley Quinn. This was the first point in this series where it's like, hey, I get this. I've seen this before.
Right.
I know what I'm reading. And then she kills the guy and threatens his sister to turn it down, to close down the call center, or their grandparents would do it for them, or something like that. And
She sent her sidekick, and I forget what her name is.
Harley Quinn.
She
Like
sent
Bollywood, but with Quinn.
She sent her sidekick to the parents or the grandmother's house.
Yeah, to
and if
kill
they
them,
weren't
yeah.
going to cooperate, she was going to use the grandparents and kill them.
Which is like, yikes. Wow.
Right. Well, yeah, she was very, very protective of the people in the call center because they were being used by the Russians for profit. She didn't like that. She was almost the champion of the small person.
Yeah, and some of that does go back to the, Frank's
Yes.
sage wisdom that life may be meaningless, but it's not impossible to live a meaningful life.
Right.
I kind of thought that was sort of like the impetus for that, and this would be sort of vigilante Harley, because that's definitely fits the bill of vigilanteism.
Yes.
Based on all the comics we read.
Yes.
That's
What do you feel was the most out there moment in this issue? There was a lot of them. I was just thinking of when you go, what weaves a story? Why was a story written?
that was a really convoluted plot line.
Yes.
I think I'd like to retract my previous out there and replace that with convoluted. That's the word I
Okay.
That's what I want.
All right.
Both of those equal amounts, out there, convoluted. It's just it's so snaking, and at points it's kind of funny.
Right.
I found this a little bit funnier than
Yes.
the last story arc, but it's hard to find a reasoning for why do this and then go here and then fight a giant
Right.
robot and have the call center basically get destroyed just by the giant robot. And I don't know. It's hard to wrap my head around.
It's hard right now to wrap our heads around Harley Quinn because there were spots of it. I read it a couple of times just to try to get where I'm going with it, and it was weaving in and out all over the place. I feel like the end part felt like Harley Quinn, like the middle part when they were at the call center, and once she found out where she needed to go, that felt like Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
This other, where she's finding out, just trying to have fun. Maybe some people like it. I'm still indecisive about this Harley Quinn. I prefer her in the Suicide Squad a lot better right now.
Yeah.
But maybe because that's a backup role that she's playing, where it's all spread out. As her right now in her own book, I'm not sure. I'm not sold.
She's a bit more focused in Suicide Squad. At least that plot line's a little bit more focused.
Right.
This honestly, this issue, I figured they'd go back down into that little the basement or whatever, where they had all those doors. Because when they said, what was it? All those ways to die. I'm thinking, that goes with the doors. That's gonna be the next plot line. Then they go to India. Like
India and Russia.
Okay.
I hope she got some bacon vodka because that was really what she wanted in the Russian bar. Was she wanted a bottle of that bacon vodka?
Yeah. Hey.
Well,
Yeah.
I can't. I don't want to keep on dragging and beating the dead horse or the alien infected hot dog horse. But right now, Harley Quinn is just, we read it and we wonder, where are we going with this? Is this supposed to be the humorous comic book of the DC universe because her character is humorous? Or will we get to some stories where they start to feel like they have some substance? If Harley Quinn's going to be the humorous title, okay. But I do want to see some serious stories, some stories that interweave within the DC universe.
Yeah, and I think going back on her past, like she mentioned in the first issue, that would be an excellent way to do that, to get us all up to speed with that, because she has a pretty big cast of supporting characters that we're not necessarily that familiar with. And I mean, it has a lot of potential. I love the art. I mean, it could be cool. It's just, holy cow.
Right.
It's you read it, I read it, and I was just, my brain was tired. Because you went from New York to India to Russia.
Kind of like Street Fighter 2, you see the little plane, India, New York, Russia.
You can just hear the sound of the plane flying over the ocean to the next one, yeah.
Harley Quinn number 4. Getting a little bit better in terms of cohesive story, but not really. We'll still read her. I prefer her in Suicide Squad. This will be one, if you have any difference of opinion and tell us why you feel Harley Quinn is a really great book, email us, drop us a line. Until then, we're still not sold. And with that, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we'll discuss Green Arrow number 7 and Batman number 7. We'll be back in just a moment.